Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so we all know the world of crypto is exciting, right? It's full of potential. But, beneath the surface of all those wild price charts, there are these traps set by market manipulators. And you might be wondering, just how big of a problem is this, really? The answer? It might just shock you.
Get this. According to some pretty serious studies, on certain exchanges, up to 70% of the trading value you see might be fake. Yep, you heard that right. It's something called wash trading. Other analyses say it's anywhere from 55 to 85%. That means our huge chunk of the market activity could just be, well, an illusion.
And that really brings us to the core question here. In a market where so much of what you see might not even be real, how do you actually protect yourself? Look, when the game is potentially rigged, you're not going to win by playing their way. You have to build a system for yourself that basically makes you immune to their game. So, let's dive into how you do that.
All right, first things first. To build a defense, you've got to know what you're fighting. So we're going to break down the 3 most common tricks in the Manipulator's playbook. These are tactics that really exploit the market structure and, more importantly, our own human psychology.
First up, we've got wash trading. Honestly, this is just pure deception. A manipulator just trades an asset back and forth with themselves. Why? To make some totally unknown token look like it's the hottest thing on the market. All that fake volume is designed to trick you, to lure you into believing there's real demand, right before they pull the rug.
Next on the list is spoofing. The best way to think about this one, it's like a high-stakes poker bluff. A manipulator puts a gigantic order on the books that they have absolutely no intention of ever letting go through. The whole point isn't to trade, it's to create a mirage, a fake wall of supply or demand, just to spook everyone else into making a bad emotional decision.
And here's exactly how that con works, step by step. First, the spoofer puts up that huge fake sell wall. Then other traders see it, and they start to panic, selling off their own assets to get out ahead of the crash. That panic selling is what actually causes the price to drop. Right at the last second, the manipulator cancels their fake order, and then what do? They swoop in and buy up the asset at the new, lower price they just created. They literally profit from manufacturing fear.
And of course, we have the classic pump and dump. These schemes are, as old as markets, but they found a whole new life in crypto. You've got groups on Telegram or Discord all coordinating to hype up some tiny, little-known coin. That's the pump. It creates this massive price spike which sucks in all these outsiders who have a serious case of FOMO. And then comes the dump. The insiders sell all their holdings, the price crashes to zero, and everyone who just bought in is left holding a worthless bag.
So you can see these tactics are pretty clever, right? But here's the thing. They only work because they're targeting something that's way more predictable than any market, our own minds. Let's really get into the psychological vulnerabilities that make all these financial traps possible in the first place. Manipulators are basically just applied psychologists. Seriously. They weaponize FOMO, that fear of missing out, to get people to pile into a pump and dump. They absolutely count on loss aversion, our hardwired instinct to avoid losses at all costs to trigger that panic selling they need for spoofing to work. And they love overconfidence. That little voice in a trader's head that says, yeah, I know it's a trap, but I'm smart enough to get out just in time.
And this quote, wow, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? The crypto market doesn't just reward good math, it absolutely punishes emotional reactions. Greed, fear, panic. These are the levers that manipulators are pulling all day long. So if the problem is fundamentally psychological, well, the solution has to be too.
Okay, so how in the world do we fight back? The first layer of our defense has to be structural. This is all about setting up your finances, your portfolio, in a way that's just naturally more resistant to these kinds of shocks.
And the absolute foundation of this financial armor is dollar cost averaging, or DCA. Look, instead of trying to time the market, which is exactly the game manipulators want you to play, you just invest a set amount of money on a regular schedule, rain or shine. This one simple habit turns investing from this emotional roller coaster into a disciplined, automatic routine. It completely removes that agonizing question, is now the right time to buy?
And beyond DCA, there are a few other really key defenses. Stay away from high leverage. It's like putting a giant target on your back because manipulators can trigger these huge liquidations with just small price moves. Keep your position sizes reasonable so you're never forced to sell just because of some short-term market noise. And for sure, stick to reputable exchanges, the ones that are more transparent and regulated. It really reduces your exposure to the worst of this stuff.
So the goal here is to become a better observer, to learn to see the signs. Think of this table as your field guide. See a sudden massive spike in volume on some obscure coin with zero news?
That screams wash trading. See a giant buy or sell wall that just vanishes anytime the price gets close. That's classic spoofing. A whole bunch of influencers on social media suddenly hyping the same tiny token. That's the signature of a pump and dump. Just being aware of these patterns is a huge first step.
But look, all those structural defenses and red flags, that's only half the battle. The most powerful defense you have isn't in your portfolio, it's in your head. This is about building the psychological armor, the mental resilience to just let these attacks bounce right off you.
To really win this mental game, we can borrow some powerful frameworks from professional, systematic investors. And don't worry, these aren't complex theories. They're just practical mental habits designed to stop our emotional brains from taking over and to keep us focused on the long term. Let's break down the big ones.
Pre-commitment might be the single most powerful tool you have. It's so simple. Before you even think about buying anything, you make one single rational decision. You write down your rules. Why am I buying this? How long am I holding it for? At what price will I sell? By writing that down when you're calm, you stop yourself from making 100 tiny emotional decisions later on, right when you're in the heat of the moment and manipulators are trying to make you panic.
Next is what's called base rate thinking. All this really means is, instead of freaking out every time there's a 20% drop, you anchor your expectations in historical reality. You just accept that in crypto, huge price swings and deep, scary drawdowns are statistically normal. They happen. Once you internalize that fact, a sharp drop is no longer some terrifying catastrophe that makes you panic sell. It's just the market being the market.
And finally, you have to practice emotional distancing. If your plan is to hold for years, then the daily games that spoofers and wash traders are playing are completely irrelevant to you. They are just noise. And what's the best way to ignore noise? Stop listening. Check your portfolio way less often, maybe once a month, not once an hour. This creates a buffer, a space that separates your real, long-term plan from all that short-term chaos designed to throw you off your game.
So when you bring it all together, the path becomes pretty clear. You're never going to outsmart the manipulators by trying to play their frantic day-to-day emotional game. You win by refusing to play at all. You win by building a disciplined, systematic approach, both financially and psychologically, that just operates on a completely different level. So I guess the only real question left is, what's your system going to be?